What is up, YouTube? It's me, John Avenger, once again, and welcome to another sci-fi movie month, month two. And this is the review of this is a recent comedy that came out a couple years ago in 2010, and it's a very underrated, very fun comedy that did not need a sequel, but I'll get to that later. And that is the first and the only Hot Tub Time Machine, the unrated edition. I do like this cover better than the original poster art with the girl's leg and our breasts in our face. Is kind of weird. But this is a fun movie. I bought this movie back in like 2014. I got it for like $2, so a hell of a deal. It's a funny movie. Like this is an R-rated comedy that works, unlike a lot of the R-rated comedies that have recently come out in like the last 4 or 5 years. The cast is great. I think Rob Corddry, he steals the show in this movie. He's just hilarious and over the top and so just so crazy. John Cusack, yeah, the real star of the film because the story is based through his eyes. And the first movie works because he's in it. The sequel doesn't work because he's not in it. But I'll mention that later. Craig Robinson, the black guy, he's not just a token black guy. He has a arc to him. He's funny, and he actually is a family man, and he does a lot of good stuff in the movie. Clark Duke, the nerdy guy, the religious guy that was in Greek, which I didn't care for him there, but here I liked him. And in Kick Ass, I thought he was all right. And it also has a cameo, an extended cameo with Chevy Chase. This harkens back to the '80s, and it does it well. It's not like Adam Sandler, where in every movie he's in, he has to remind you that he loves the '80s. We get it, okay? This movie did it better in 99 minutes than your freaking recent like track record. This is actually funny. This has a good cast. It's got people trying that give a shit about being on screen, and you have an also really good supporting cast. You got Crispin Glover, who makes a good, cool appearance. He's from Back to the Future. You got Lizzie Kaplan, the gorgeous girl with the big eyes from Cloverfield and a bunch of other stuff. She's a really good actress. She reminds me of Kat Dennings, just toned down a little bit. And also, you got there's another the girl from Lindsay Fonseca. She plays a role in the film. She plays John Cusack's girlfriend in the past. She's from Nikita. You know her as the gorgeous girl from Nikita, and she was in the first Kick Ass as well. So just like Clark Duke, and she's beautiful. I love looking at that woman. She just sends me. Also in this movie, Rob Corddry has a fight scene with the Winter Soldier himself. Sebastian Stan. He's in the film and he looks different and he's just playing an asshole in the movie. But it was funny to see him. I'm like, oh, that's Sebastian Stan, the guy that played Bucky. It's cool to see him here. He's a fun actor. Let me get back. I want you guys to see him since he's in the movie. I want you guys to see him. My poster. But this film, the reason it works, is got a cool premise. A bunch of guys they're down on their luck, and they want to go back in time. They want to see what they could have done with their lives if they had changed their past, kind of like Back to the Future. They go in the hot tub and they start drinking and doing drugs and doing crazy shit. And then they don't know that the hot tub is a time machine, and it harkens them back to the 1980s, 1987. There is one gripe I have with the film, which is definitely something noticeable if you were born in the '80s like me. Uh, basically, there's a scene. They go to 1987, which is fine. Most of the music they play there is appropriate. They have the regular screen TVs and no iPods, no cell phones, none of that. And the guys look younger. They see themselves in the mirror and they look younger. But one problem is that it's 1987, right? And there's a Rambo 3 poster, and that movie came out in 1988. So they were a little bit ahead with this. They went a year. They were a year behind because the Rambo 3, it was in production in '87, but it was released in 1988. I remember that. So that's a little continuity error with the film. But I only maybe the filmmakers the writers Josh Hill, Sam Anders, and John Morris probably forgot about that. It's like, oh, it's an '80s movie. We'll just let it slide. But anyway, that's just one gripe I have with the film. I think it's very funny. It has some sex jokes, but they kind of work on the scene where he looks at Craig Robinson's crotch and he's like, "Wow, it's the size of like Gary Coleman's arm." And then the scene that he faints because he thinks he has to blow his friend, and then he has white stuff on his face. He thinks it's jizz, but it's not his soap. It's from the soap dispenser. That was funny. The scene in the hospital when they see Rob Corddry, that's funny. These guys have really good chemistry. The one reason I will never watch the sequel or review the sequel is because it lost its way because John Cusack didn't come back and it didn't have the heart of the first film. This film has heart to it. You care about these guys, you care about their stories and their lives, and when they go into the past, they learn a lesson. It's like in the sequel, they completely ignored that, and Rob Corddry's an asshole again in the sequel, and it's got stupid jokes that don't work, too much sex and gross out humor. And Adam Scott, he is no John Cusack. Sorry, he wasn't even born in the '80s. I think Adam Scott. It's just he's not horrible, but he's not John Cusack. This movie works because of him and the rest of the guys. And the premise is cool. It's nice to see the '80s done from a 2010, perspective. And as a child of the '80s, it's a love letter to people that grew up in the '80s. And it is what it is. It's not for everybody. If you're a super conservative, you're going to be offended by some of the jokes because it's R-rated. Corddry curses like a mile a minute, and that's basically the character he plays. But I like him as an actor. I liked him in Unaccompanied Minors as the dad of the kids, and I like him as a voice actor. He was one of the only good things in that Escape from Planet Earth, and he's fun. He's a fun actor, and I want to see him in more stuff like this. But no more Hot Tub Time Machine movies. The sequel flopped, wasn't needed. This should have been a standalone film. It works. It's funny. It's got a cool premise, and the actors are trying. And it represents the '80s without beating it over your head, and it works. And it's fun, and I enjoy the film for that. And there's some scenes that I think could have been cut out. Like there's a sex scene that's kind of awkward. Because Clark Duke wasn't born in the '80s, so his dad has to have sex with his mom in the '80s in order for him to be conceived, and it's a little bit forced. I'm like, it wasn't really needed. There is a scene that Rob Corddry, strips naked and he thinks he's gonna have sex with this Asian girl who is phenomenally sexy, by the way. And Clark Duke looks at him and is like, "It's a little." That's also a weird scene, but at least I got to see a gorgeous Asian girl from Canada. Yeah, that's always a plus for me. And but anyway, this is a fun movie. See the first one. Skip the sequel. It's not needed. No one asked for it. 5 years was too late to do a sequel, and this movie should stand alone. It's fun. Didn't have a cliffhanger at the end. It's good, and it's one of the rare R-rated comedies that works to this day. It's not like Kick-Ass where it's dumb and unfunny. This works, and I like it for that. So that's my review of Hot Tub Time Machine 1. It's a really good movie. It's no classic like the classic comedies of the '80s or '90s or even back in the '30s and '40s, but it is a good movie for what it is. It's good on its own. Didn't need a sequel. The sequel can go screw itself, and it doesn't have the charm of the first one. Just see the first one. That's advice to you guys. Anyway, thanks for liking, subscribing, commenting. I'm gonna end this video because I was really tired. I donated blood, so I have holes in my arm. I got to relax the next couple days and stay hydrated and just I donate blood because I care about people. So it's a sacrifice I have to make. But anyway, see you guys in the next one. Peace.